folks, it's Andy. I hope you're having a fantastic day. As you can see behind me, I've got my Kendogi, Hakama, and Kote here, and they're all soaking wet through because I've just washed them, and I thought it'd be great to make a quick video about how to do that. So I did film it as I was doing it, and we're going to have a look at it all now, step by step. Okay, so we're going to start with a Kendogi. I have a Kendogi here that's ready for washing. I've built up plenty of sweat stains on it, so let's get it nice and clean. Now I'm going to start with a bucket of nice clean water. There's no soap, there's no detergent, there's nothing in here. It's just clean, cold water. Okay, not hot water. You do hot water, it's going to shrink, especially if you use a cotton Kendogi. If you use a synthetic one, you don't necessarily need to wash it like this anyway. Synthetic one, you'll be able to wash in the washing machine. But if you're using a cotton Kendogi, especially one that's Izome dyed, like this one, you want to be hand washing it just like this, and not in the washing machine. If you put it in the washing machine, not only is the colour all going to run out of it, it's going to stain all the other things you put in there, it's going to stain the inside of your washing machine, and it's going to fade very, very terribly. Okay, so in all sorts of random patterns, and that's not what you want. Okay, so this is the best way to wash it. Okay, so we're going to unfold it all, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to completely submerge this Kendogi into this bucket of cold water, just like this. It goes all the way in, so that it's completely submerged. Now you want to do this either with a Kendogi that you're ready to wash after you've worn it for several times, or if it's a brand new Kendogi, if you have a brand new Kendogi, an Izome Kendogi, it's definitely worth doing this before you wear it. You might even need to repeat the process a couple of times just to get the excess dye out of the fabric, because when they Izome dye these garments, there's loads of that Izome dye in the fabric, and it's going to rub off on your skin. So you just want to give it a wash and a soak just like this to get rid of some of the extra dye in there. Now it will still turn you blue a bit after that, and it will do for quite some time afterwards, but that's Kendo, so we can put up with that. Okay, so now it's under the water. I'm giving it a nice massage and making sure that the water is completely covering the Kendogi, and I'm agitating it and working the water through the fabric. The water's already started to turn a sort of dark blue colour. And when we do this with the Hakama afterwards, you'll see that sometimes the water doesn't go as blue as it goes a kind of brown colour. That's because there is a sort of part of the indigo dye that's a kind of fixing that is a brownish colour. So don't worry if you put it in and it's brown rather than blue, especially with Hakama. Okay, so I've agitated this quite a bit now. There we go. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave it submerged in here for about 15 or 20 minutes. All right, not too long, don't leave it overnight or anything like that. Just 15 or 20 minutes should be just fine. Okay, now we've given it a good agitation. We're going to leave it just like that, and we'll come back to it in about 15 or 20 minutes. Okay, so this has been sat here now for about 15 minutes. What I'm going to do actually is I'm going to take it out once, I'm going to change the water, and we're going to put it back in, and we're going to repeat the process. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out. It's going to be absolutely soaking wet, of course. Now, as you can see, I've already prepared a drying rack behind me. Okay, so I recommend you do this as well if you can, because you're going to need somewhere to put the Kendogi whilst you do this, and obviously when you're finished, where it's going to dry. But we're going to just be careful how we take it out of here so that we don't end up spilling water all over ourselves and everywhere. It is going to be dripping wet, of course, because it's been soaking in here now for a good amount of time. And it's quite a thin Kendogi, so it's not so hard for me to sort of wring it out as I pick it up. It's not a massive problem, because I am going to be soaking it again anyway, so it doesn't have to be super dry. It just wants to be a bit more manageable so that I can move it around without a problem. Okay, so I'm going to just spread that out now. Now it's extremely heavy, of course, because it's full of water, and I'm just going to put it on a coat hanger for a minute and put it back on here. Now when I actually dry it out, I'll show you a little trick as to how I can help it dry out a bit quicker when I'm leaving it to dry. But first, we're going to get rid of all this blue dirty water that we've let the Kendogi soak in, and we're going to replace it so that we can come and repeat that process all over again. Okay, so I'm back now with some new clean cold water. Remember, we're not putting any soap, no detergent in here, and it's nice and it's cold water, okay? It's not hot water. We use hot water, we're going to shrink our Kendogi, and if we use detergent or soap and stuff like that, we run the risk of bleeding out too much of the dye and making it fade, and that's not what we want, okay? I know the kind of faded Kendogi look does kind of look a little bit nice, but if it's faded too much, then it just looks like you're not really looking after your gear, okay? The nice deep blue colour of indigo izome is something that we have to look after and treat with importance, okay? So we have to be careful and delicate when we're washing it. Right, so I've got this nice clean water again, and we're going to repeat the process with our Kendogi. So let me get it from this hanger, and it's going straight back in exactly as we did before, straight in. And I'm literally doing exactly as I did last time. I'm agitating, completely submerging, giving it a good move around in this water. The water's still turning blue. Now, this isn't a brand new Kendogi. This is one that I've worn now a handful of times since I last washed it. And before that, I wore it a few times. And when it was brand new, I did do this process as well. So this is sort of about the third or fourth time now that it's gone through this process, and it's still bleeding out some of the dye. So that is how much comes out from this. So don't worry if you've got a brand new one and you've done this process and it's still rubbing off on your skin. That's perfectly normal, okay? So now I've done that, I'm going to leave it in here again for another 15 or 20 minutes, and then we're going to take it out and we're going to hang it up to dry properly, and I'll show you a little trick that we can do with that as well. Okay, so our bucket's been out here now for about another 15 or 20 minutes, so it's time to get the Kendogi out, and we're going to hang it up to dry. Now, what you can do, of course, is you can pop it on a regular coat hanger just like this. That's not a problem at all, but I'm going to show you a little hack or a trick that I picked up from my father-in-law in Japan, which is to take an old shinai stave. You can take it, of course, from a broken shinai, though I do recommend you use one that isn't broken, because I don't want you to get splinters and stuff like that. And what I've done is drilled a couple of holes in it, and I've run a piece of tsuru, the string from the shinai, through it, and tied it in a double knot like that, so it makes this sort of shape, okay? Now, I'm no handyman, all right? I'm no expert at this sort of thing. So probably this could have been made a bit better if I'd spent a little more time and effort on it, but it'll do for what we want it for right now. So I'm gonna pop that down to one side, and I'm gonna take the Kendogi out of the bucket as I did just before. Okay, we're going to be quite careful as we pull it out. So we just whip it out, the water's going to go everywhere. We're going to get it all over ourselves and everywhere else. And as I take it out, I am giving it a bit of a squeeze to get some of the water out of it. And as you'll notice, it is very, very heavy when you pull it out, because of course it's full of water. Now, you don't necessarily have to use a bucket like I'm doing. Some people do it in their bathtub. But I would be careful, because as I said, the blue dye does come out of the garments, and it might stain your bathtub, right? So just be careful. If you're going to use the bathtub, make sure you give it a good clean afterwards, because I don't want you getting in trouble with anyone at home because you turned the bathtub blue. All right, so that's something that's worth noting. Now, I like to give it a bit of a squeeze like this, just to get some of the excess water out before I hang it up. Just like that. Careful not to drop it back in the bucket. There we go, there's plenty of water coming out of it there. Okay, that just makes it a little bit more manageable to handle. I'm going to then stretch it out like this. Okay, and then I'm going to get my bamboo stave here. It's going through one sleeve, like that. And then the other side is going through the other. Just like that, okay? And there we are. I can now hang this up like that and it will dry much, much faster. All right, if I give the sleeves a bit of a squeeze as well here. But even though, now once I've squeezed them, here's something to be careful of. If I just leave them like that and leave it to dry, it's gonna dry all creased and horrible, okay? So give it a bit of a stretch out as well before you leave it whilst it's wet, so that it dries out nice and neatly, okay? And we'll do the same with it when we hang it up. I'm gonna take that coat hanger from before, I'm gonna utilize that and the hook, and then I can hang it straight up, just like that. Okay, I'm gonna just move this away from the wall there, so I've got enough space. Hang it on there, and like I said, I'm just gonna neaten it out, straighten out any wrinkles that are too extreme, so that when it dries, it's nice and neat. And it's worth doing the same with the Himo as well here. Just flatten them out a bit so that they don't dry all wrinkled up, and they dry nice and flat, and they're easy for you to tie, and it looks nice and neat when it's done. Okay, and then leave it in a nice dry place, of course. It's best not to leave it in direct sunlight, because again, that will fade the dye. All right, so leave it in the shade to dry, and you're all done. If it still smells a bit bad afterwards, then you could always repeat the process one more time. Okay, let's move on to the Hakama. Okay, so here I am with a pair of my Hakama. I've already unraveled the Himo, and if I unravel the entire Hakama, you can see if you use a Hakama for obviously especially for a intense practice, and then you sweat in it quite a lot, and then you fold it straight up, put it back in your bag and come home, often you'll find that these sort of white salt stains dry on it, okay? This is normal, all right? So don't worry if this is something you find. Happens to the Borgu as well, and actually after we've done this, we're going to talk about how to wash your Kote as well. What we're going to do is I've unfolded the Hakama completely here, and we're going to do very much the same as we did with the Kendogi. And you don't have to be too worried about being all nice and neat with it. Of course, I know the pleats are very important, but we'll deal with them after we finish washing it all. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get it all together, and it's going all in the bucket. Okay, now don't forget these Himo are quite long. So it's going straight in. Again, we're using that nice cold, clean water, no detergent, no soap, nothing. And in it goes. Now there's a lot more fabric on a Hakama than there is on a Kendogi. So you're going to have to do a little bit more work when you're agitating it to get that water into all of the areas and into all of the pleats and the crevices of the garment, so that it can be definitely washed. Okay, so I give it a good agitation. I need to keep moving it around. I need to move it around quite a lot in this bucket. Now, if you can, you should be better off getting a bigger bucket than I've got here, actually. But this was the only one I had to hand, so you can manage if you have to, just as I am. Okay, so it needs quite a bit of agitation. And as I said before, unlike the Kendogi, what you're going to find here is the water's going to go a kind of brownish blue colour, all right? And that's just to do with the way the fabric is fixed. The dye is fixed to the fabric. Okay, it's not something to worry about at all. Okay, so now once we've done that, we've made sure that the water's gone all around the Hakama. We've given it a good agitation. I'm going to sit it in here nice and comfortably. And I'm going to leave it to soak again for another 15 or 20 minutes, just like we did with the Kendogi. Okay, so I did leave these Hakama out for 15 or 20 minutes. Then what I did exactly as I did before with the Kendogi. I took them out, I changed the water, and I did it all again. Okay, so I've done 2 passes of it now. All right, and then we're going to take them out and we're going to hang them up to dry. Okay, exactly as we did with the Kendogi. So what we want to do is we want to just get them ready to take out first. And there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can use this handy little gadget here. It's a special hanger with 4 pegs on it. It's a kind of, it's particularly for drying the Hakama, actually. And we'll have these on KendoStar available very soon. All right, so these are a really handy little gadget for doing this. But if you don't have one of these, don't worry. You can actually use 2 coat hangers instead. Most Hakama have like these loops here, which you can hook coat hangers through, and then you could use a couple of coat pegs or clothes pegs to clip this part of the Hakama to the hanger, so it hangs in very much the same way. Okay, so it's not you don't need one of those if you haven't got one, so don't worry too much. Okay, so we're going to take the Hakama out quite carefully now. Now what I'm doing as I pull it out is I'm stretching the Hakama down this way and stretching it out, all right? Straightening it out, because I did scrunch it up quite a lot as I agitated it there in the bucket, okay? Now what I'm going to need to do is pull on it here, okay? We're going to pull it nice and straight, okay? So as you can see, it's all wrinkled and creased up, right? If we're not careful, it's going to stay like that when it dries, and that's not what we want at all. Okay, so give it a stretch out there, okay? And then I'm going to take this Hakama hanger, just going to pop that over the bucket like that, and I'm going to take the clips and I'm going to clip it to the top of the himo on either side of the koshita at the back first, and then I'm going to take the front side, okay? And now it's quite a lot of weight to ask this thing to hold when this thing's wet through, but once you've pinned it at 4 places, it should be okay. We're about to find out. So I'm going to pick it up together first, because I need to be careful of those himo as well. Be careful of those himo as well. Let's pick it up. Okay, and there we go. That's ready to hang on my drying rack. Okay, now my drying rack's got a really thick bar at the top here, so I have to use just the edge where there's a bit of an indent to hang the Hakama hanger. But what I'm going to do as well at the same time is I'm going to just flatten out the obi, sorry, not the obi, the himo, like this, so that they're not all crumpled up when they dry and they're nice and flat and easy to tie. Okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to loop them back over the hanger like this, okay, so that they're not trailing down on the floor. So again, I'm just going to straighten out this side as well, so that they do dry nice and flat. Yeah, because it's much nicer to have the nice flat himo that are easy to tie up than the ones that are all scrunched up. Okay, and we'll pop them over that side, and don't forget to do the back ones as well. They're much shorter, so they're much easier. Straighten them over the other side this way, like that. Whoops, like that. Same on this side. Nice and flat. And then the last thing I'm going to do, and I've got to be very careful because I don't want to pull this off the hanger. Right, I want to make sure it's clipped on properly as well. I'm going to check these at this point now. If I pull this now, if I pull this at the bottom, it's going to come straight off. So I'm going to hold it at the top there, and I'm just going to pull it straight. Okay, so I'm going to use this opportunity now to straighten out the pleats on the Hakama, both at the front and the back. Okay, so I'm going to go around the Hakama, and I'm going to just straighten out those pleats so that it dries in the shape that I want it to, and it's not too crumpled up as it's drying. Okay. Now it will inevitably have a few wrinkles in it when it's dried. Don't worry too much about it. You don't need to put an iron on it. I definitely would recommend against doing that, as not only will you turn your iron blue, but you'll turn your Hakama really shiny. Right, it's not a great way to do it. All you need to do is fold it up properly when it's dry, and the pleats will fit very nicely, and the creases will disappear as well. So the creases you don't want, that is. Okay, there we go. We've got it nice and pretty much how we want it. I'm just going to double check those fastenings on here because I don't want it dropping off. Again, obviously with it being wet through, it's very, very heavy, much heavier than it would normally be. Okay, so it's actually dropped off there at the back, but it's not a problem. Just re-clip it back on, and we're going to leave that now to dry together with the Kendogi. Okay, so finally, let's have a look at how to wash your kote. It's very, very similar. It's pretty much the same thing. You could actually wash your tare in the same way, but please don't wash your men like this. It's very important that you don't get the menbuchi, the hard part that's usually painted black and red. It's very important that you don't get any water on that, so I don't want you to wash the men in this way. All right, the way to wash the men is just use a clean cloth after you've used it to wipe it down, and if you do get the sweat stains on it, you can use a damp cloth to wipe them away, but definitely do not put a men in any water. Do not submerge it in any water. Okay, it's very, very bad for it. But the kote and the tare as well, you can do the tare like this as well. You can do without a problem. Now what I'm using here, I'm using a pair of orizashi kote, okay? So these kote are finished with orizashi fabric, and the palms are synthetic leather. So these are very, very easy to wash, and they don't really require any special care or attention. But you can do this same thing with kote that are made from other materials as well. If it's all synthetic leather, that's fine too. You just do exactly the same. If it's made using deer skin though, then after you've done this process, then it might be worthwhile just popping a little bit of oil, any kind of leather oil that you can get. If you look the sort of thing that people use for saddles, on the tenuchi, just to give them a little bit of suppleness back once they've dried out. Okay, don't worry too much about the actual atama, the fist section, as that will gain its flexibility back with use. Okay, so what we're going to do, exactly like we did with the other things, we'll do them one at a time. We're going to submerge them completely in this clean cold water with no soap or detergent. Okay, straight in. Okay, in it goes. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm agitating it, I'm actually going to be squeezing the fist section under the water. All right, I'm giving it a good squeeze like this to push the water through the fibers of the kote. Okay, that's it. And then I'm going to also give it a good scrub and a rub like this under the water. Okay, so I want to work away any sweat, and I'm going to do that on the inside as well. Okay, because this is obviously one of the areas of the burger that most sweat builds up. Okay, and on the inside as well, not forgetting the tenuchi, but the inside of the fist section, the bit that goes behind you, at the back of your hand as well. Like that. Like that. Keep agitating it. And again, I'm going to leave that in there for 10 or 15 minutes. Do not leave it in there for any longer though, okay? You don't want to be soaking this overnight, whatever you do, okay? Because it'll start to affect the materials. Just 10 or 15 minutes is fine, and then we can move on to the other one. Okay, so I've been leaving that in there now for the last 10 minutes or so. I'm ready to take it out. Again, we're going to take it out carefully. It's probably best not to take it out this way, as it's going to be full of water. If I do that, you're best taking it out from the fist side like that, so it's not full of water. Okay, seems pretty obvious, but thought I'd mention it just in case. You can give it a bit of a squeeze some of the excess water out of it here. Okay, but don't pull it too much like this, you might damage the tenuchi. Okay, just give it a squeeze like that. We'll squeeze out some of the water. There we go. Now what I will say is that the kote take much longer to dry than the Kendogi and Hakama do. All right, so you need to expect them to take around maybe 3 or 4 days even to dry properly. Okay, and do not use them until they're fully dry. It's not a good idea to use them whilst they're still wet. It's not good for them at all. Okay, and then I'm going to just use my coat hanger. I'm going to thread that through the himo like that, and I'll do the same with the others. The other one, when I finished it, it'll go on that side like that, and we'll hang it up to dry as I did with my other items. Okay, just like that on there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing with the other side, and then I'm all done. So there we go. We've finished washing our Kendogi, our Hakama, and our Kote. As I said, you can wash the tare in the same way, but don't wash your men in that manner. A couple of things to remember, I can't stress enough, do not use hot water. Don't put any of these things in the washing machine, it isn't good for them. And don't use detergent or soap either, as it will indeed fade the dye much more than it should. So you want to use nice, clean, cold water with nothing in it. Okay, if you still feel like they need to be cleaner after you've done, if you're still getting a smell from them, then just repeat the process until that smell is manageable, shall we say. I hope you enjoyed the video today. Don't forget to shop at KendoStar.com, and I'll see you all next time.